I will never forget the night my parents broke my heart. It was a cold December evening in Portland, Oregon, and the rain was falling hard against the windows of my childhood home. I brought my boyfriend Mateo home to meet them for the first time. Mateo is from a small town in Oaxaca, Mexico, a place called San Pablo where the mountains meet the sky. He has the warmest smile and the kindest eyes I have ever seen. He came to America with almost nothing, just a backpack and a dream. He worked as a dishwasher at a local Mexican restaurant to pay for his English classes and to send money back to his family in Mexico. I was so nervous, but so excited. I thought my parents would love him like I did. I was wrong. The moment Mateo said he worked washing dishes, my mother's smile disappeared. My father didn't even stand up to shake his hand. Dinner was silent and painful. My mother kept looking at Mateo's hands like they were dirty. After Mateo left, my parents sat me down and said, "We cannot accept this. You deserve someone better, someone with a career, someone American. Not a dishwasher from Mexico who will drag you down." I begged them to give him a chance. They said no. That night I made a choice that cost me my family. I chose Mateo, and I walked out of their house with nothing but the clothes on my back and the man I loved by my side. Let me tell you about the man my parents rejected. Mateo came to America with $200 in his pocket and a dream bigger than the desert he crossed to get here. He left his mother, his father, and his grandmother Abuela in Oaxaca. He hadn't seen them in 3 years when I met him, and every night he would look at photos of them on his phone before he went to sleep. He worked 16 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. He washed dishes, cleaned floors, scrubbed toilets, and took every extra shift he could find. He never complained. He never asked for help. He just worked. At night, after his shift ended at midnight, he would study English with old textbooks he bought from a thrift store. On his days off, he learned to cook traditional Mexican recipes from his grandmother, who called him from Oaxaca every Sunday morning. He was not lazy and he was not a failure. He was the hardest working person I have ever met. My parents saw a dishwasher. They saw a man with soap on his hands and an accent in his voice. They saw someone they thought was beneath them. But I saw a man who would do anything for the people he loved. When they rejected him, they rejected the kindest, most loyal, most loving person in my life. I could not forgive them for that. So I left. I packed a small bag, took Mateo's hand, and walked out of my parents' house. My mother screamed that I was making a mistake. My father said not to come back until I came to my senses. I didn't look back. The first 2 years were hard, really hard. Mateo and I rented a tiny studio apartment above a garage in a neighborhood nobody wanted to live in. The walls were thin and the heat barely worked in winter. We slept on a mattress on the floor and used blankets to keep warm. We ate beans and rice almost every night because that was all we could afford. But we were happy. Mateo kept working at the Mexican restaurant, washing dishes and cleaning floors, and he started helping in the kitchen when the cooks needed an extra hand. He learned everything he could. I got a job as a waitress at a diner downtown called Pete's Place. Every night, Mateo and I would come home exhausted and sit on our mattress and talk about our dream. We wanted to open our own restaurant someday. A small place where Mateo could cook his grandmother's recipes and I could run the front of the house. We wanted to call it Abuela's Kitchen, after his grandmother who believed in him when no one else did. People laughed at us when we told them our plan. They said we were just dreamers. They said 2 kids with no money and no connections would never make it. But we didn't listen. We saved every penny we could. Every dollar went into a shoebox under our bed. That shoebox was our hope, and we protected it like gold. While we were struggling to survive, my parents were busy rewriting history to make themselves look like victims. They told our relatives that I ran away with a stranger who tricked me. They said Mateo was using me for a green card. They never mentioned that I was 25 years old when I made that choice. They never mentioned that they kicked me out because they couldn't accept someone who worked with their hands. My younger sister McKenna called me one night crying. She said Mom and Dad were telling everyone that Mateo was a criminal who came here illegally. None of it was true. Mateo had a work visa. He paid his taxes. He followed every rule. But my parents didn't care about the truth. They only cared about their reputation. They couldn't tell their friends that their daughter married a dishwasher from Mexico. So they made up a story that made them look like the good ones. That was the moment I stopped hoping they would ever change. I had spent 2 years hoping they would call me, that they would apologize, that they would see Mateo the way I saw him. But they didn't. They just dug deeper into their lies. So I blocked their numbers. I stopped checking their social media. I focused everything on building a life with Mateo. I told myself that my family was gone, and I needed to accept that. It was painful, but I did it. I stopped looking back. I stopped hoping. And I started building. 3 years later, the shoebox was finally full. We had saved $30,000. It wasn't a lot for a restaurant, but it was enough to start small. We found a tiny space for rent in a quiet neighborhood in Portland called Montevilla. It used to be an old laundromat with dirty floors and broken windows. But Mateo looked at it and said, "This is ours." We cleaned that place for weeks until our hands were raw. We painted the walls warm yellow and hung string lights from the ceiling. Mateo's grandmother Abuela sent us her secret recipes written on old paper that smelled like her kitchen. She wrote letters to us in Spanish, telling us how proud she was, how she knew we would make it. We framed her letters and hung them on the wall. We named the restaurant Abuela's Kitchen after her. The first few months were very slow. Some days we had only 5 customers. But those 5 customers told their friends, and their friends told their friends. Slowly people started coming. They came for the tacos and the enchiladas, but they stayed for the love. Mateo cooked every meal himself. I waited every table myself. We worked from sunrise to midnight, 7 days a week. By the end of the first year, we were breaking even. By the end of the second year, we were profitable. By the third year, we had a waiting list every weekend, and people booked weeks in advance. 5 years after my parents kicked me out, Abuela's Kitchen was famous in Portland. We had been voted best Mexican restaurant in the city 2 years in a row. We had moved to a bigger location with real tables and colorful tablecloths. Mateo no longer washed dishes. He was the owner, the chef, the heart of the restaurant. One Friday night, I was hosting at the front door when I saw them. My mom, my dad, and my sister McKenna walking toward the entrance. They didn't see me at first. They were looking at the menu on the wall, talking about how they had heard great things about this place. My mom said, "I hope they have good margaritas." My dad said, "The reviews say it's authentic, some of the best Mexican food in the city." I stood there frozen like a statue. 5 years of silence. 5 years of them telling people I was brainwashed. 5 years of them acting like I didn't exist. And now they were standing in my restaurant, in my world, looking for a table to sit at like nothing ever happened. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I wanted to run and hide, but I didn't. I stood up straight, smoothed my apron, and walked toward them. This was my restaurant, my dream, and I was not going to run away from anything ever again. I walked toward them slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. My mom saw me first, and her face went white like she had seen a ghost. My dad stopped talking mid-sentence. McKenna started crying. My mom whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. I said, "Good evening, welcome to Abuela's Kitchen. Do you have a reservation?" My mom couldn't speak at all. My dad looked at the floor like he wanted to disappear. McKenna said, We didn't know this was your place." I said, "Well, now you know." There was a long silence that felt like forever. Then my mom said, "Can we please sit down? Can we please talk?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream at them for all the pain they had caused me. But I looked at Mateo through the kitchen window and he nodded at me. He always knew what I needed. I took a deep breath and said, "I have a table in the corner. I'll seat you there." My mom reached for my hand and I pulled away. "Don't," I said. "You don't get to touch me. Not yet. Not after everything." My mom pulled her hand back like she had been burned. She nodded without saying a word. I picked up 3 menus and walked them to the corner table, the one farthest from the kitchen. I placed the menus down and walked away. I didn't look back. I sat my parents at the corner table near the window. McKenna sat between them looking uncomfortable and guilty. I handed them menus without saying a word. My mom kept staring at me like she was seeing a stranger. My dad wouldn't look up from the table. Mateo came out of the kitchen wearing a white chef's coat with his name embroidered in gold thread over the pocket. He had a towel thrown over his shoulder and a wooden spoon in his hand. My mom gasped when she saw him. She finally understood. The dishwasher she had rejected, the man she had called a mistake, was now the owner and head chef of one of the best Mexican restaurants in Portland. Mateo didn't say anything to them. He didn't wave or smile. He just looked at them for a long moment, nodded his head once, and went back to the kitchen. I took their order myself. My mom ordered the enchiladas. My dad ordered the carne asada. McKenna ordered the tacos al pastor. I didn't make small talk. When the food came, I served it myself. My mom took one bite and started crying. She said, "This is incredible. This is the best thing I've ever tasted." I said, "Mateo's grandmother Abuela taught him. She believed in him when no one else did." My mom knew exactly what I meant. She ate her enchiladas in silence while tears rolled down her cheeks. After dinner, my parents asked for the check. I brought it to them on a small silver tray. My mom said, "We're so sorry. We were so wrong about him. About everything, we were wrong." I looked at her and said, "You told everyone I was brainwashed. You said Mateo was using me for a green card. You called him a criminal. You never once called to ask if I was okay. You never once asked if I was hungry or cold or scared or alive." My dad finally looked up at me and he had tears in his eyes. He said, "We were proud and stupid. We thought we knew what was best for you. We didn't know anything." I said, "I know you're sorry, but sorry doesn't fix 5 years of silence. Sorry doesn't fix the nights I cried myself to sleep because my own parents chose their pride over their daughter." McKenna was crying quietly into her napkin. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm not going to kick you out. You can finish your dinner. But I'm not ready to forgive you. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not today." My mom nodded without saying a word. She paid the bill and left a $100 tip. I didn't want their money, but I didn't give it back either. I watched them walk out the door into the cold Portland night. Here is what I learned from all of this. People will judge you based on where you start, not where you're going. My parents saw a dishwasher from Mexico. They didn't see the man who crossed a border with nothing but hope, who worked 16-hour days, who learned a new language alone at night, who honored his grandmother's recipes, who loved me without any conditions. They judged him by his job and his accent, not by his heart. And they lost 5 years of their daughter's life because of it. If you are watching this and someone has rejected you or someone you love because of their job, their background, or where they come from, hear me. Keep going. Keep working. Keep believing. Success is the best revenge, not because it hurts the people who doubted you, but because it proves them wrong without you ever having to say a word. Mateo and I built a restaurant from nothing. We built a life from a mattress on the floor and a shoebox full of hope. My parents came back, but only after we had already won. I am Alina. This is my story. And I wouldn't change a single chapter of it. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever been rejected by the people who were supposed to love you, know that you are not alone. Their rejection does not define you. Your resilience does. Keep building, keep dreaming, and one day the people who walked away will see what you've become. But by then you won't need their approval anymore. You'll have something much better. You'll have your own table. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear that hard work pays off. This is Alina. See you in the next story. And remember, a dishwasher can become an owner, a dreamer can become a boss, and a broken heart can become the foundation of something truly beautiful.